danger.
Pickle.
Well, hello, and welcome to the first official episode of our Summer Game Fest coverage. Now, Summer Game Fest itself has not actually started in an official sense from Jeff's site at least, but there has been a few events that happened before, ones that were either sanctioned or partnered with them, that being the State of Play that happened this past weekend, or I guess a few days back now, as well as the Marvelous Showcase, which happened at the same time, and the OTK Game Expo, Indie Game Expo, which was, as of this recording, earlier in the day. Now, I had not been familiar with OTK before. I'm not, listening to us, we're not big on watching streamers. Birdman watches a fair bit more, and so does, I know that, I would say probably JT doesn't, but I know that Ken does, but very specific lanes of streamers. The only streamers that I'll end up watching are ones related to specific games I'm going to want to play, or ones that I've already played, and then I want to see what their takes on it are after I've completed my review to see if we're sort of aligned or not. Birdman has his people, usually COD people, and a few people from, was it TK that he watches for years and years ago, and he sticks with them, so I only know those people. I don't really know any of the people from OTK, except when watching this, I was like, oh, these are some of the people that pop up in my recommended feeds or the algorithm in the shorts and that, and I'm like, oh, it's these people. It's a world unto itself that I don't know about, but it was interesting to watch, and it seemed to be that there was a bunch of people from outside of their group that have been laid off in the games media that have sort of just congregated for it. We'll go into that probably in a longer form show once we do the full coverage at the end. These mini episodes of the prototype are meant to be pretty short and straightforward. I will go over individual things that were announced. Basically, I'll say everything that was announced, mention whether or not it seems relevant right away to us as far as the crew, or what I think would be most relevant to listeners as far as what's coming out now. We try to skip out and cut out anything that's a gotcha game or is too far off. And that's the kind of thing we bring up for a discussion in a longer form when it's not just me or not just two of us here for the long form discussion. So with that, I've also gone and grabbed the individual showcases as well as any high quality assets I could get from the press sites for the trailers, cut them all up and put them into a complete rundown of the ones that I'm going to be talking about that I think are most important, and ones that you might want to check out that maybe curate to the likes of us as a whole. Sort of what I did with the Japanese Indie Showcase about a week ago or so, or actually I guess it would be this week, depending on when we put out the episode. But yeah, it's sort of the sample we had in the Geek News this week. So I just want to say that before I get into this, the only other game that wasn't a part of these three shows that was announced separately, and they have a date now, or at least a release window for Metal Slug Tactics. There was a new trailer for that, which is sweet. We've been hoping to see that for quite some time. So I've included that trailer at the beginning of the YouTube collection, and I'll have obviously a link in the show notes directly to get to this, so you can watch what I've been talking about if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel. Obviously, if you are, you'll see it have popped up before this episode goes live, but still, it's good to have something, a record to go back on. Plus, Birdman and other friends that maybe don't have a chance to look at it right away will then be able to see it. And sort of what I've always done, I've always curated the shows for the crew that couldn't be there live to watch, and I'm just putting it together with just a little bit more professional, slapping a title on it, throwing it up, and that's sort of the insight into what I usually do with our shows. So what we've got here is, I'll start with the Marvelous showcase. Now, this happened, unfortunately, the exact same time as the State of Play. It should have been before or after, but I wasn't super impressed. Marvelous owns Xseed, and they sometimes publish under each brand. Xseed generally does more of the translations of other properties that they would license, which they haven't had in a while. They've lost a lot of those licensed properties, like the Falcom stuff, to NIS America, and who knows where it's going from there. But because of that, there wasn't a whole lot to show here, and it was more just the stuff that Marvelous themselves are making through their studios, and maybe they'll trickle down through Xseed at some point. There just hasn't been a whole ton of Xseed stuff lately, so what we have here is mostly stuff that I think most of us are going to want to skip. There's some fairly low budget looking mobile type titles that are being ported over or released on consoles that probably shouldn't be gacha-y farming stuff. There was, I think last year reported on it, Project Magia, which has been rebranded as Farmagia, which, sure. There wasn't a whole lot to show. They had a lot of screen stills of some of the characters. They had a little bit of like farming stuff in it. I'm like, oh, great. They did show off that there's a new story of Seasons in the works. It does look cute. It looks like they've increased the budget there for it, but wasn't a proper full trailer, just a lot of individual clips, so that's not included in our thing. Rune Factory Project Dragon was shown. Again, they're not really stepping up the budget on these. They kind of look like the games they've been putting out the last 10, 12 years. Again, we'll see from there. And then at the very end, which I did include a trailer for, they had the teaser for this sequel to Daemon Ex Machina, which is the one game in the last several years that Marvelous made that specifically had a bigger budget, and it looked it, and it worked pretty darn good on the Switch, and it even had, like, I think Hori made some officially licensed controllers, like the large Joy-Cons, when everybody was looking for those because they're better to hold in your hands. So that was pretty much that. And then let's get into the PlayStation showcase. I will skip talking about things, except that there was a lot of live servicey type games that we are probably not going to be interested in, and I honestly don't think a lot of people will be either. Concord was shown in full with a really long trailer, and I'll be interested to try it out. We always give everything the benefit of the doubt and a try, but it really does just look like Guardians of the Galaxy meets Overwatch, and it's about 5 years too late. I don't see what's going to pull people in, except for the fact that there's going to be weekly vignettes added to give the character's story. It looks very generic. It might play really well. It's got a lot of industry vets working on it that at the new studio that was formed for them. But I think it's one of those games we're going to have to play and get in the beta, and I'm pretty sure our friends at Sony will provide us codes for that, just to see how it feels. Because I'm feeling like this might be one of those things where it looked like a really good idea when they were thinking about making these 4 to 7 years ago, and it's just people have already determined that they're either going to stick with the live service games that are already there, or they're not interested. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think that the interest has waned in the ones that are the most popular. But again, we'll see. Beyond that, there were a few Chinese-inspired historical ones. They're all kind of starting to blend together. So we won't talk about that. We can't tell which ones are gacha games and which ones are Souls-like, but when we get more concrete stuff, we'll mention it. Same with, like, Until Dawn getting a remake, even though it's not even that old of a game, and it already can still be played, I think, on modern consoles. Sure, Birdman might like that. God of War got announced with the PC version. We sort of just knew that was coming. There's some hubbub about it, obviously, because it's going to require a PSN account on PC and yada yada. A couple of games for PSVR 2, which we're not even going to cover because none of us... I don't know a single person with the hardware. In the industry friends that I have that are reviewers or are news people or content creators, it's like less than 1 in 10 that have it. So it's too pricey an option. It the games that they had, Skydance's Behemoth and the Alien one, they still look like they're going to make you a little sick. The more they increase the graphical fidelity, the more janky it starts to look. It's almost like we're still about 5 to 10 years behind where it needs to be before it's completely smooth to show. And I pick up my Oculus 2 or my Quest 2. I pick it up every 2 or 3 months just to play a bunch of Beat Saber and then maybe redeem any codes that I have for discounts on things. It's just not, it's not pulled people in, and I don't think that the VR2 is right now either, unfortunately. Maybe if we had gotten review units, but it's just, for anybody out there, it's too expensive an investment for what's available. At least that's my opinion currently. We haven't seen anything like that looks absolutely amazing that also happens to be longer than a 2 or 3 hour game. And then it's like, are you kidding me? It's like $500-600 Canadian to get into that ecosystem on top of your PS5. Plus, you've got to buy the game. And they did announce after the show that there's a $50 or $60 adapter that will let you plug it into a computer, and you're going to be able to play VR games on the computer using the VR headset. That's going to add some extra value to it, but it might be a little too late. We'll see how that works. Again, skipping most of the live service-y gacha type games, or skipping the Chinese ones that there wasn't shown enough of. Dynasty Warriors Origins was announced, so it looks to be a soft reboot of Dynasty Warriors with a new engine that could be jank. It's probably going to be janky, but it does look to have a lot higher fidelity with a lot more enemies on screen. More impressive looking than pretty much anything since Dynasty Warriors was on the PS2 platform era. So we'll see more about that next year. And then after that, there was a longer trailer showing off how completely different Monster Hunter Wilds is. It looks like they're fully in the RE engine and the fidelity is higher. There's some frame rate issues there, but it looks pretty good. I've not ever really been a fan. I've played and liked Monster Hunter Stories, but I've not, that's the JRPG style. I just haven't been a fan of the big monster slaying one. This might pull us in. We'll see. Maybe Birdman will be able to get a review code and he can check it out. But after that was the, I guess, game of the show. And that was when they showed off Astrobot having its full game. Now, that had been sort of teased and people had leaked that it was probably coming, but we didn't know if it was going to be a VR game or if it was going to be an actual full regular game. And it's looking like it's a full regular game. I think it's like 60 or 80 levels. I'll have to double check. I think it's 80 levels. And it's a full-blown, looks like a cross between Mario Galaxy and Mario Odyssey with a little bit of the most recent Kirby game with how you can alter your state of being to grow bigger, grow smaller, all these power-ups and ways to interact. It looks like a long-lost Nintendo game, only more polished because it looks like it's 4K ray tracing, 60 FPS or better on PS5, something that Nintendo is struggling to break out and even get the 60 FPS 1080p on their own system. So it's almost like looking at the future of what Nintendo might be able to do, but from Sony. So it's something really interesting to look at. So that's in our little trailer collection here. And then we move forward, and there's not a collection and individually trailers for the stuff that was shown at the OTK showcase or expo, but it was a 4-hour thing I watched. And I was able to distill it down to a handful of stuff that looks really interesting. There's more in there, and it's a lot more indie stuff, so I'm not shitting on anybody. It's just, I had to pick out the ones that looked the most interesting and most unique from the pack. And there was Rah Rah Boom, which is a cheerleader beat-em-up. Looked fast-paced, good art style, looks entertaining. We'll check that out at some point, probably. Smack Studio, which we talked about on the Japanese Indie Showcase, had more of a showing here, and they actually had people in their studio playing it, where they even made like their own version of like Mii's almost, where they took their pictures and put them on the heads of the characters and then fought like a Master Hand type boss, and it was actually pretty cool. There was Screenbound, which is a game where you're playing a Game Boy, and then you're also having to navigate the real world around you, and things that happen in the Game Boy affect the things that happen in the real world. And you'll have to watch the trailer to see what I mean. It's really weird looking. There was Astral Throne, which is a strategy RPG roguelike, but interesting and maybe not quite as hard as crazy as it looks. Roguelike scares me away, but I know a lot of people love it. So I wanted to include it because it has a cool look to it. Then there was, let's see here, Pull Stay, which all I can say is WTF. That is the most wacky Sega late 90s looking game ever. I can't describe it. You have to watch the trailer. And then Wild Bastards, which is like, what if you took a cartoon 2D paper Mario style thing, but it's a first person shooter RPG mix. And then the final trailer I think we have together is Low Life Forms, which is a FPS shooter comedy weird alien game from a bunch of vets from the industry that have been doing this, people that go back 20, 30 years in some cases. They've come together and it sort of had a pre-alpha showcase there. Really interesting stuff. And I do think that it was a lot better of a showcase. The showcase itself, or the expo itself for the OTK one, had a lot more production value than I was expecting. Better than some of the stuff that's in Summer Games Fest usually, like with the Wholesome Games and some of those showcases. So I'll be more interested to maybe check it out. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch any of the individual creators' streams because they don't usually play the games that I would normally like, but kudos to them. I think it's really impressive. And, if you like some of the trailers that you see in the link for our collection, maybe go back and watch it. It looks like they have pulled the live stream from their official YouTube, but it was co-sponsored and co-streamed with, I believe it was IGN and GameSpot. So you can go and look at they have like a 4.5 hour if they have the pre-show on there. And it's 1080p, 60, might be 4K. Don't think, maybe not, but some of the games have footage that is that though. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's sort of a roundup of what's going on. I will be back in a couple of days, depending on if I can get Ken on, depending on how that goes. The day of Summer Games Fest opening night, I should be back recording sometime earlier in that day, because after that there will have been the Guerrilla Collective showcase beforehand, and the the Able Gamers, why am I drawing a blank? I gotta look it up because I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's the showcase for the Accessibility, the summer showcase. That happens in the morning of the Summer Game Fest stuff. So those two showcases, it depends. If there's a lot of cool stuff shown and Ken's available, we'll sit down and talk for maybe 10-15 minutes, do a little mini-sode of that. If not, I might be doing it solo. We'll see how that goes. And then what'll happen is we'll watch the Summer Game Fest regular show. I'm going to have a couple people over to watch it here. We're going to do like a finger food, hors d'oeuvre, buffet style party with like samosas and meatballs on toothpicks, and I think somebody's bringing a salad or two, and we're just going to graze and watch and enjoy and see if anything goes completely batshit during it, as well as the Devolver Direct afterwards. Then the next morning we'll be recording our reactions to that and release that right away, because that's a long day on the Saturday with Future of Play, Wholesome Direct, Latin American Game Showcase, the Women-Led Game Showcase, and the Future Games Show. Following day, we'll record the, collection of that, release it before the Xbox Game Showcase and the PC Gaming Show. Then the Monday, we'll be recording our reactions and a discussion, very brief on that. And there's going to be the Ubisoft Forward Showcase that day. And we might hold off recording our reactions to that until we hear what's going on with Nintendo, because there should be something in that week, I believe, for Nintendo. If not, at this recording, have already been announced or so. And then that weekend, we aren't going to have a regular show of the podcast. We're going to have a review show, probably in that time period of the regular normal week, like maybe on Monday morning or something. And then the following week, we won't have a regular show. We'll have our long-form discussion on Summer Game Fest as a whole, and Birdman should be available for that, because then he'll have had a few days to catch up, and I'll make him catch up. And we can discuss where gaming sits currently as our sort of State of the Union discussion. Won't go super long, but it will get a little more in detail than obviously what we're doing now. So I guess that's pretty much it for this little mini-sode. I'm going to stop recording, get it edited. We're going to get it released, and then hopefully you can check it out and, see if any of these games interest you. And it's sort of interesting to see the trend of where some of these indie games are going as we get closer to some of the major first party and second party developer showcases. So stick around, make sure you keep checking your notifications for podcast drops and YouTube video drops of some of these trailers, because we're going to do those for every single one of these showcases. And just come along for the ride with us, and we'll be back, I guess, in a couple of days right here at ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.